G'day folks, well this is the end, it's the end of turn 22, the end of the scenario, evening on the 26th of December, and yeah, this is the final situation. Germans continually pushing the Americans back, but failing to break through and not reaching the Meuse. So you can see kind of getting pretty close down here. They finally managed to capture this hex in the centre. I can't remember what the name of the town is, but they've been sort of striving for that for some time. What is it called? Rochefort, sorry, in there. Captured the outskirts of Neufchâtel. It's actually not part of the city, of the town. It's L'Anglière, which is important because it kind of impedes this road movement along here, forcing American reinforcements to sort of take a bit of a route around. So yeah, long story short, American victory. Their lines are incredibly thin, and they are constantly pulling units away from their flanks and rotating them around to the centre. And there's kind of piggybacking of units. Fortunately, these Americans, or their armoured brigades, have pretty high movement values. You can see in the background the strategic movement of these latest reinforcements. They were, throughout the latter half of this game, this campaign scenario, they were able to do that. They were able just to fill those gaps and block these German advances at every turn. The Germans rarely had sort of moments of open breakout. It was breakout, they move a couple of hexes, and then there's a bit of a roadblock or some small American tank battalion holding this vital crossroads and just sort of serving as a roadblock. Or engineers, when the engineers first came on, and they just sort of stopped the Germans from driving straight the roads. They did their jobs. In other words, that's what they were sort of, that was the plan. I'll do a separate wrap-up video, but just want to show you the situation at the end of the game. Look, even right to the end, on this final turn, when the Germans finally managed to clear out this horrible hex here, but then they couldn't advance. They're gaining ground elsewhere. They sort of had a few successful attacks along here and are gaining ground up here. But it's, yeah, ran out of time, basically. And even if they reach the Meuse, I mean, I don't know if you can see all those British units up there, but even if they reach the Meuse, they're going to have a lot of trouble crossing it. The British are just sitting there. I haven't even bothered putting them in decent defensive positions because, yeah, I kind of felt confident that the Germans wouldn't reach it. So the only, I guess, other viable German objectives were to capture those victory points west of the Ourthe River, and they're sort of scattered all over the place. You can see Bouillon here. They do have a few. I haven't counted them up. At a rough guess, I'd say 1, maybe 3 or 4. They could probably drive on that down here, but there's a lot out of their reach. They could have also driven harder on Liège, but that's tough terrain. There's a lot of rivers around here, a lot of bridges to cross. They could, I guess, loop around, but this was a very difficult. This is the little passage that I was trying to drive through. Eventually, kind of, I think the Americans really retreated away from here to cover their flanks rather than the Germans successfully driving through. So it was tough progress through here. Yeah, look, I'll do a separate series of thoughts in a separate semi-review video. Not quite a review because I've only played through it once, but yeah, look, this has been a great experience. If you get a chance to grab Ardennes 44, this is only the first edition, and I thought it was great. Hard to comment on balance. I mean, I'm playing myself. I felt that I played better as the Americans than I did as the Germans. I made a lot of planning errors as the Germans. You really need to plan your night turns. You need to have the units ready to have the night markers placed on them so that they can exploit in the night turn. So you're really thinking you need to use the AM turn to get these units into position, use the PM turn to provide the operational circumstances to enable them to move at night, and then use that night turn to hit, attack, create some gaps, and then use the following AM turn to exploit through those gaps. So you've really got almost an overlapping 4-turn sequence. The mistake I made was often treating this as a 2-turn sequence. PM, I'm looking for night markers to exploit at night, and by then it's too late. You need to start planning the AM turn, set the framework in the PM turn, strike at night, exploit in the following AM turn, whilst also setting yourself up for the next night turn, AM turn, and so forth. So it's this constantly revolving cycle. Instead, my problem with the Germans was I'd attack, set up this PM turn, night turn, exploit, and then spend 24 hours kind of recovering and planning for the sort of 48-hour later night turn. I think the Germans need to exploit or look to exploit every night turn and be thinking about that pretty much every turn, because that is where they have their most success, in that night and then AM exploitation. What else? Look, the German regimental cohesion was great. They did very well to keep everything together. The Americans can't counterattack because they are such a scattering of forces. It's difficult to bring more than 2 different formations into the battle. You can basically pick any hex on the board. So let's say they want to attack here. You've got 101st Airborne, 10th Armoured, and then 6th Cav, 30th Division. What about this hex here? Okay, 6th Cav, 30, 10th Armoured, 4th. Maybe that's illegal stacking. Yeah, it is illegal stacking. So that armoured unit shouldn't be there. That happens from time to time. Over here you've got broken down 2 units of the 4th Division side by side. Oh, here we go, 4th Armoured Division. They could actually attack this hex here. It's probably the one space on the board where you can actually get 2 American hexes that can attack the Germans. Everywhere else, it's just they've been grabbing whatever they can to fill the gaps, block the roads. I mentioned a couple of videos ago there was a brief American counterattack down here, and then they had to pull back to use those forces in the lines as the Germans drove west. Situation down here has been very quiet for some time now, a couple of days. I left these supply markers on here just to show sort of the fuel shortage crises that the Germans are facing. The last term wasn't too bad. The 9th SS Division aren't doing much, so I was happy for them to get out of supply. And then I got a bit lucky, I guess, with the 3rd, I think it's Panzer Grenadier, I want to say. I could be wrong there, sorry. Division, of which there are only a few units in this little area. Yeah. What else? Look, American Air. Once American Air comes out on the 23rd, it's tough for the Germans because they, as I said, they rely on those D1, DR4 results at good combat odds ratios to get the big exploitation. Once American Air comes out, there's a 50% chance of at least a 1 column shift left, at most 3, which removes the possibility of those D1, DR4 results. If I show you the combat odds results table, if you think that most of the time the Germans are looking at odds around here, right, the 3-1 to 5-1. Occasionally you get lucky, you get a 6-1 or a 7-1. Very rarely do I go into a combat with 2-1. And in fact, well, not very rarely. Towards the end of the game, I was doing this more frequently. But let's say you get a 4-1 is probably 3-1, 4-1 is average. You get a 1 or 2 column shift, and it's down to here. And then you've got a 1 in 6 chance of forcing a retreat, excluding the firefight result. And you've got even a chance of getting hurt yourself. So it becomes very tough. And from the 23rd onwards, if the Germans aren't anywhere near the Meuse, they're in trouble. Yeah. Right, well, that's about it. As I said, great experience. If you get a chance, pick up Ardennes 44. It's the kind of game that, having just finished it, I want to kind of immediately set it up and play through it again, learning from those mistakes, see if I can drive faster. Great as a solo game. I played through this entirely solitaire, and I mean, open information. The Germans have a plan, but so often they are kind of just responding to the situation. You can have a broad plan to sort of drive through Bastogne towards Neufchâtel. It is Neufchâtel, yeah. You can plan to do this, but then, as happened in this game, American defenses might be weak on the right, and so you redirect your attention here. And then I think what I loved about this is the constant redirecting of divisions. So keeping the SS Panzer divisions out of the front lines. They don't want to be defending. They want to be behind the lines, flexible, mobile, unit night exploitation. And being able to swing left or right when they can. Great around here. Much more difficult to do in the forests and wooded areas. Look, I'm probably saying a lot of the things I wanted to say in this review, so I'll stop this here. An American victory. They denied the Germans their victory objectives, which gives them the victory, and that is, the end of the game of Ardennes 44, the Battle of the Bulge. Thanks everyone for watching.